Hi, this is Kim Renz. I'm speaking about the position of Technical Director Designer at Wesleyan College today. I'll be answering a few questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them in such a way that they're understandable. I did make a few notes, so that should help a little bit. Question number one, how can you imagine strengthening interest? What do you see as the challenges and opportunities of such a situation, and how can you imagine strengthening student interest in theater in order to grow this program? Good reading, Kim. First of all, I think that the challenges are that it limits the size of a production and the budget you can have when you only have so many people enrolled. I know that the more student hours there are involved in a show, the more support you get from the school, or generally speaking, the school, in terms of monetary considerations. If you only have 15 students involved in your productions versus somebody else who may have, a different area may have a lot more students, then you generally will get a lot more support for that. I don't think it's a bad thing to have a small department. As a matter of fact, I think in a lot of ways it's a very good thing. It does allow you to work with the students more on a one-on-one basis, smaller groups. It's always a good thing to have smaller groups in terms of the learning for each student. So I think that's a huge advantage. It means that you would choose productions that you would not choose for a larger group. You may do a small-scale musical, for instance, as opposed to Oklahoma or something very large like that, where you need a cast of 60 or 80. It does allow you, though, when you make a choice to do a little larger show, or when you, in this case, when you want to use men or whatever to go into the community to get some additional talent. And I think it's always a good thing to provide diversity for the students in terms of the people with whom they are working. Yeah, you can build a very strong company by all working together, but the reality is most situations when you get out there, you're going to be working with other people, not just your core group, unless you're a very small company. And I'm not talking about just theater. I think just generally, the more people you are around and the more different kinds of people you are around, the more you learn from that. So I think big productions can be very handy for teaching the skills that you need in terms of interpersonal communication and collaboration. However, if you want to get down with it and say that the director or the designer or whoever is going to work a lot more with an individual student or individual students, I think you find that they're going to go a lot farther faster in some respects by working with a small group where they can explore more avenues with each individual student. Let's see. Number two is you're a small liberal arts college with a pretty diverse population. I think diversity is probably one of the best parts of our culture. Unfortunately, it's hard to always get everybody to agree with that, but in my particular situation, I do believe that the more diverse a community is, the stronger it is, not weaker. I think that the more we learn from each other's cultures, the more we learn about each individual, the way they behave, based upon where they were brought up, the better off the world is. So I see that I could learn from students every bit as much as I would hope that the students could learn from me about the world and certainly the business. So number three, talk about my design work. Well, I've been a designer for a long time, as you probably know from my resume. I started in the early 80s in Macon, Georgia, of all places, working with Paul Oppie and working with Marian Zielinski. I used to do some design work also with Make and Act way back in the day, and I've also designed for Theater Macon and for Macon Little Theater. So I have really good relationships with many of the folks from those organizations. I believe that my design work is based upon my own individual definition of what design is. And I'll read it to you because I wrote it down to make sure. Choice and placement of physical objects necessary to promote the idea of the playwright. So I don't look to impose myself on the play, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to find out what is appropriate for that production in order to, again, promote those ideas, to enhance the play. But the main thing is that the playwright wrote the play for a reason, and if that reason is lost, then I believe that we've done a disservice to the playwright and to the play. So let's see. In terms of working on a limited budget, I've worked on $50 budgets, and I've worked on budgets worth thousands of dollars. So I'm very comfortable working in either area. I don't mind using stock work, whether it's platforms or flats or maybe another piece, and adapting it to my needs or to the needs of the play rather than saying, hey, I need to go out and, well, first of all, I don't believe in throwing everything out at the end of the play if you have places to store it. And I don't believe that you need to spend your entire budget. You don't, excuse me, that was our door. I don't think you need to spend your entire budget if you don't have to. I don't think you should be looking to spend your budget. I think the idea is you're looking to do what you need to do for the play. So if you don't have to spend all the money, why spend all the money? If you don't need to build an elaborate something, if you do, you do, yes. But if you don't need to in order to tell the story, then you're looking for ways to not spend money you shouldn't spend. So yeah, small budgets, no big deal. It's just part of living in theater. Teaching classes, I could teach stagecraft, lighting, scene design, some management courses if you like. I have many years of experience in management. Depends on what you would want to teach. My particular area is arts presentation, performing arts presentation, and I've also managed several theaters over the last 15 years. So I have a fair amount of experience in those areas and could teach any of that. I also have taught a number of classes in public speaking. However, I do not have a lot of graduate hours in performance nor in public speaking in that communications area. So if you're accredited, then I probably would not be allowed to do that. You'd have to tell me. Okay. As far as directing, I have done some directing. I've also studied with Paul over at Mercer, Paul Oppie at Mercer back in the early 80s, and I studied in graduate school with a couple of professors, Alan Cook and Betty Jean Jones, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. And I've done some small shows. I've also directed The Mikado and an opera called Nosferatu, which was written by, the lyrics were written by the head of the NEA. And I find it to be really rewarding for me to work with students and with other adults on plays as a director, although I wouldn't say that it would be necessary for me, from my perspective, that I do so, as that is not what the position is. However, if you're looking to do something interesting and need somebody with a different viewpoint, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Okay, let's see. Macon, Georgia. Macon, Georgia. Macon, Georgia was my home for 16 and a half years. I love Macon, so coming home to me is what that would be. So I would love to work again in Macon and live there. So there's no question of that. In terms of, I don't understand the 80 miles south of Atlanta, I'll live and say Atlanta's available to go up and see good theater, see the symphony, go to a ball game. Well, Atlanta has some great places to eat, but even Macon has some nice places to eat, as I have experienced when I've been home. So working with students, I thought a little bit about this. One of the most interesting and rewarding times I had was when I was the designer and technical director at Macon College for a while. And we had a weekend where the students came and helped build HMS Pinafore. And we built all of the scenic elements, the basic scenic elements, the flats and stuff, on one weekend. So I had about 15 students come. And we worked together as a team for a whole weekend doing this task, this chore, that chore, having pizza for dinner. And it was a great time. And I think the students got a lot out of it. It was a great team building exercise to have them all working there at one time on the scenery. And I found that to be quite rewarding for me as well. Well, if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. apologize for the quality of the video. This is my first time to ever do this, and to videotape myself, which you can imagine is kind of disconcerting, but not a big deal. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd sure like to talk to you. Take care.